Now, it's my view that this is where the FCC should start. And it should modify that clear, strong principle in light of a very clear target that I think terrifies the providers, that we get to broadband as a commodity. Not a commodity in the sense that oil is a commodity regulated by OPEC, that's OPEC's brand if you've never seen it before, but in the sense of a commodity of chips or PCs or wheat or sand, a commodity where there's fundamental competition in the provision of this commodity, driving the price of that commodity down. That's the objective, and we get there through a constant focus on this as the end. Now, one more point about this. In this objective, the principle of end-to-end or network neutrality should be thought of as a very central principle, just like the First Amendment is thought of as a central principle in the regulation of speech. It is a heavy weight against any intervention or any change that compromises that principle. But just as the First Amendment is but a heavy weight and not an absolute bar, so too this would not function necessarily as an absolute bar where there are countervailing interests that don't compromise the underlying incentive to produce neutral, open, competitive network. Finally, I don't know if you remember this book by Susskind that revived this idea inside the Bush administration of an opposition to something called reality-based policymaking. I'm one who has some hope that we're going to get out of that mentality of anti-reality-based policymaking, but I want to end with two very important realities here. Right? Here's reality number one. The embarrassing fact that when somebody lists the top 10 countries in broadband penetration by population, we're nowhere on the list. Our broadband is not acceptable for the United States. Reality number two, that despite the objectives and the policy statements and the hopes of many over the last 10 years, we still have not achieved a clear network neutrality policy that is viewed as enforceable and meaningful from the FCC or Congress. Now, one conclusion you could draw from those two realities is that the absence of regulation does not produce abundant broadband, because we've effectively had no regulation, which the providers have been opposing, yet we don't have broad growth in broadband relative to other countries. Now, that would be a little bit unfair, because they could respond, well, we've had this uncertain question about whether we're going to get regulation, and that's why we haven't invested as much as we would invest if we just clearly knew we could do whatever the hell we wanted. But there is one certainty here. In the most important space for competition, we see which architecture has worked. And the architecture which has worked doesn't depend on promises or trust. It depends upon what the architecture enables. And what it enables is maximizing competition in the space that provides real value in this economy and the content and applications. We need to put away in this debate the radical theories that would drive us away from that reality. We need to be conservative in this debate and preserve what has worked in driving this economy. And what has worked is a neutral network. Thank you very much. Thanks.